Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be building a dining room table and bench. Now, if you missed my last video, you're probably wondering where the heck I am and where my normal shop setup and everything is. So we actually just moved, and there's a little bit of a delay between when we moved out of our last house and now before we get to move into the new place. So for now, this is kind of my temporary shop setup, and I'll just be working out of here for the next few weeks. I think I dug all of my essential tools, or at least most of them, out of boxes. So ready to get going here on this next project. So dining room table and bench, they are going to go in our new house. We sold a lot of our stuff when we moved because we had limited space, so we're definitely going to be needing a table and somewhere to sit. So let's get going. I'm building both the table and bench out of ash, and this is actually my very first time working with hardwoods, so I'm super excited to see how it turns out. Now, the biggest difference between buying hardwoods versus like dimensional lumber that you can just get at your local home improvement store is that you actually buy hardwoods by the board foot and rip them down to size yourself. So for example, this is 6/4 ash. I just went to my local hardwoods store and they had it available in 8-foot lengths and then widths anywhere from like 5 inches to 10 inches. So I just made sure to buy enough board feet that I could rip all of my tabletop boards as well as my boards for the frame out of it. Now, if you don't want to deal with any of that, no worries. I did design both of these to just be built with standard dimensional lumber, so you can actually build the whole thing out of 2x4s and 2x8s. The only difference here is I ripped my own 2x8s and 2x4s out of the ash. A lot of the boards for the bases are cut at a bevel, but if your saw can't do beveled angles, you can turn the boards on their sides and just cut them at a regular miter. This trick doesn't work if you're working with wider boards because there's not enough vertical clearance, but since these are all just 2x4s, you should have no problem fitting the board under your saw, even though it's on its long edge here. If your saw can do beveled cuts, then that adjustment's in the back and it'll just lean your saw to one side or the other, and you can just turn your boards down flat and cut them like you normally do. Alright, we're ready to drill the pocket holes. Since there's so many angles in this design, I do recommend marking the locations for your pocket holes ahead of time. Now, I don't do that on every project because it's not as critical which way each board faces, and if you accidentally drill them on the wrong side, you can just flip the boards over and it's not a big deal. But all the angles on this design do dictate how these boards are going to go together, and I want to make sure that the pocket holes end up on the hidden sides and I don't make any mistakes. You could use other joinery if you prefer, so you don't have to worry about hiding them at all, but I decided to stick with the pocket holes here just since they're simple and easy for anyone to learn. Okay, I made it. Now that everything is cut and drilled, I am going to go through and sand the boards for the table and bench bases ahead of time. Once the bases are assembled, there's a lot of angles and small spaces that I won't be able to get the sander all the way into, so it's just easier to hit them right now while it's all, easy to reach. That said, I'll go through once they're assembled and I'll hit all the joints just to make sure that they're nice and smooth also, but I'm going to do the majority of the sanding ahead of time. All right, let's get these pieces put together. The table and bench are the exact same design, but the bench is just a smaller version of the table, basically. So essentially what I'll have is I'll have 2 sets of legs, and then I'm gonna tie them together in the center. So the first step here is just to assemble each of those sets of legs. All right, getting that center support in place would be a little bit easier if you have somebody to help you hold the board while you put the clamps on, but managed to get it done there, so. Okay, ready to drive the screws. Now, I have been having some trouble driving the screws in when I built the bases, just because this is ash, so it's a lot harder. I actually broke a couple screws, and then it was just taking like a lot of force. So one of my friends on Instagram reached out and suggested trying paste wax on the screws before driving them, and that'll help them when you're trying to drive them into hardwoods go a lot smoother. A couple other people said they'll use like dish soap or bar soap also. Somebody else said beeswax, so I'm gonna give this paste wax to try and see if that helps with getting these screws in place. Wow, that makes a huge difference actually. I don't think I'm gonna break any more screws. So if you build this out of pine, you can just continue as normal, use the normal Craig screws or whatever 2.5-inch screws you have in wood glue. But if you do make it out of hardwoods like I'm trying here, I would highly recommend trying out this paste wax. That was a world of a difference driving these screws versus everything I tried to do in the bases. I was just fighting it the whole time, and this like made it so easy. So definitely give that a try. All right, now I am gonna countersink on this side though, so that the screw doesn't interfere with the tabletop. All right, that wraps up the table base. So now I'm just gonna do the same exact assembly process for the bench seat. I'm just using wood glue to put the bench seat and the tabletop together. If you want to, you could use pocket holes also and just stagger them along the back of the boards. But honestly, the wood glue is plenty strong for your tabletops. And since I'm working with a 1.5-inch thick material anyways, there's actually like a lot of surface area here for the glue to adhere to. So the biggest thing is if you're just using glue, make sure you get really good coverage on your long edges. And then you do have to clamp it long enough for the glue to dry. So I actually don't have enough clamps to do both of these at the same time, so I'm gonna do my bench seat here first, and then once it's all dry, so probably tomorrow, I'll come back, take the clamps off, and I can use them then to do the tabletop. Okay, bench seat and tabletop are looking a little rough after the glue up, but that's a good thing because I know I got good tight joints in here where all this glue kind of squeezed out. So just gonna get them cleaned up now and then should be looking pretty good.
trying out a handheld planer for the first time here on this tabletop to get it nice and smooth. If you have a benchtop planer, you could run your boards through that also, or you just totally don't have to get this fancy at all. If your tabletop is looking pretty good and level, once you glue it up, you could just hit it with a sander really quick. I have some boards that are a little higher than others, so the planer is going to take that down a lot faster. Plus, you know, new project, new tool, it's a good excuse, right? So pick this up, gonna see how it does, and gets this thing nice and flat. That little hand plane worked wonders to get this thing down nice and flat. I still hit it with the sander afterwards to get it nice and smooth, kind of the final finish over it, but the hand plane worked really well to get some of these ridges down and even where it kind of had slipped during the glue up. And so we're looking good and ready for a finish. Color on it? Okay. I like to use these little corner braces to attach tabletops or bench seats or anything like that where you have a top attaching to a base. You could also use any other kind of tabletop fasteners or figure-8 fasteners, things like that. I've seen some people too where they'll just screw the top in. Now the problem with that is then your tabletop can't move independently from the base, so you can have some trouble then with cracking either in the top or in the bottom. So I like to use these little corner braces because they're quick, easy, and you can buy them almost anywhere. All right, here it is, the final product. I'm super excited about how this table and bench turned out, and I can't wait to see them in our new house. I did put plans together for you guys, so I'll throw the link in the description. Head on over to my website to check those out and get to building a set of your own. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.